Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Monday, August 25th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's choosing to join us here today. Whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on it, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, please do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And alternatively, you can join us live. You can open up a web browser and go to zoom.us, or you can go to zoom.us on your phone and connect with one of the many phone numbers they give that you can call. And once you're in Zoom, then you just need to add our meeting ID number. And the meeting ID number for the first hour is 853-2357-4173. 853-2357-4173. And that will let you either talk or chat with live video or type in the chat room, etc. So it's a Monday morning. We've had quite a bit of conversation about just a whole host of things. But one of the things we've been talking about is the concept of fawning. And there's some really good understanding about fawning as a process and fawning as it relates to an adaptive coping mechanism when people have taken trauma from a situation. And, the networking that goes around, because no one can read everything. One of my patients listened to an interview And with Dr. Ingrid Clayton, Clayton. And her new book is coming out, I think September 9th, and it's called Fawning. So while I haven't had a chance to read the book because it hasn't been published yet, I have listened to a couple of the interviews that Dr. Clayton has done. And one of them is a few years ago, back in 2020, I think, I interviewed Laura McGowan for her book, We Are the Luckiest. And she let me interview her again for her second book. And so as a result of that work, I've been following her on Substack. And in Substack, which is another app program that lets you get access to people's writing, she wrote a post about and did an interview with Dr. Ingrid. So in the Substack, there are a number of people who have a subscription fee, and they leave some of their material behind the paywall. And they don't charge very much. It's a low fee for a year subscription. And I believe that in the Substack for Laura McGowan, you have to pay to get access to the interview she did. You may or may not need to pay to see the interview if you go through Dr. Clayton's Substack. And so if you have any difficulty tracking that down, let me know. I believe it is available for free. If you just subscribe or follow it, you don't have to, pay money. And then you'll see the video. It's about an hour and 5 minutes of Laura McGowan interviewing Dr. Ingrid Clayton on the fawning, and it will probably just whet your appetite for the book, which will come out if that's of any interest to you for your own personal use, or if you're a therapist and you're dealing with people who are trying to make sense of their lives after having downloaded quite a bit of trauma in their past, that might be a really useful book, interview, discussion topic, etc. So fawning, one of the biggest things about, as we've talked about in the past, we've talked about books like Stephanie Foo's book, What My Bones Know, and what is being learned on an ongoing basis about complex post-traumatic stress disorder and the layers of adaptations that we create trying to deal with situations that don't fit our hopes and dreams and or are an actual assault on our system physically, mentally, or emotionally. And when that happens, when we're younger, depending upon our intelligence and creativity, we adapt. We try to adapt. We create mechanisms within us to make sense of things. And for better or worse, one of the biggest things that happens in children when they're around parents or caregivers that are not acting lovingly or gently or with some, respect, is that the children download the belief that they are the problem. And at least then, if they're doing something wrong, then there's some sense of hope that maybe they can fix it and get it right. And then the problem will get resolved, or the abuse will stop, or the abuser will start treating them gently or whatever. And this is a relatively new acknowledgement or lens to put on the patterns of behavior that people use when they come into therapy and they say, this is a symptom I want to get rid of. Doctor, help me get rid of this. We've had a pathology-driven, a disease-based model for a long time in the medical field. And then, my understanding of it is what I watched happening through the past 50 years of my being involved in this field is that the people who were in the psychology and psychiatry field were in a kind of a turf war for respectability or professionalism or validity with the medical profession and the medical doctors. And so people create systems of thought and create labels and then create a process of testing out hypotheses that line up with a theory, and they call it science. And yet, the things that psychology and psychiatry are trying to measure are not, they, most of them can't be directly observed. So there has to be inference, there has to be the implication of a cause and effect, which may or may not be there. It might just be a co-relationship between multiple factors. So we're just trying to make sense of things. And somebody created the word fawning, and somebody created the word trauma, and somebody created, the word depression, and somebody created the word anxiety. And yet the definition and the meaning and the source of the etiology of those processes within a person can be widely varied. So fawning in one person might just be buttering somebody up, and it might be something that they can pull out as a tool and use in a difficult situation where somebody who's not so aware and is somewhat triggered has the power in a situation, and then fawning or playing up to that person or buttering them up, so to speak, is a useful dynamic that can be productive if it's used consciously and in very measured ways. When it's just an auto response that gets triggered in us because we've downloaded it, we've created and refined our ability to do it over the decades in response to trauma, then when it gets resonated into activity later on in our lives, it feels like we're being possessed. It feels like it takes over our body. And it feels like we have no choice. So exploring that, exploring the earliest warning signs of tension, and then being willing to explore that within ourselves with gentleness and as radical an honesty as we can manage is very productive. And some would say it's the only way out of these patterns, or the only way to gain some liberty to be able to use these tools when they might be applicable and keep them in their proper place and perspective when they're not the best tool for the job. So here's hoping this is making some sense. I have a feeling that if the book were here, I might be already reading passages as part of our time together today, but it's not available yet. So we'll look forward to that.
Hello, everyone,
Hello.
and Dr. Tim. Thank you for reflecting more of that. I also, that book I had said, I looked and that's what came up, so I've already got it on pre-order. So, and yeah, doing a lot more depth review into what that really means, fawning, and exactly what you're saying. When it's coming from authenticity, to see what you see and give people, to see what you see in a good way, but if it's coming from a trauma place. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward into my awareness. It's so helpful, so helpful. And, and also I want to just say thank you for walking me through that reality worksheet last week, because I realized many things happened. Number one, I didn't have the capacity without your help. I wouldn't have been able to stay conscious, present, and active, to have love present if I did that on my own, because I would have tripped into the wound of the non-being mind. So you being able to hold me through that, and as doing the tapping was so helpful, because it gave me lots of different frames of reference. How to be conscious while less than love comes up. So that was really, I so appreciate that. And then lots of examples. I'm doing lots of worksheets around that coping strategy of fawning. My brother was 18 years older than me. He didn't like me, or my perception, he didn't like me. And there was a lot of hostility towards me my whole life. And I see many indications where I fawned to try to get his attention. And my mother, and yeah, it is ingrained as a pattern. And so now I get to be aware of it and come alongside it when it shows up. And yeah, so I really am grateful for all this coming forward into my awareness.
Well, you're very welcome and deserving. Did you have um, uh, any kind of an insight or breakthrough that was directly related to the worksheet?
Yeah, the worksheet, well, it's just, again, the Rolodex of memories related to that survival strategy surfacing. Like it's just, it just, I see many and many examples, and I'm just, I'm really glad I didn't go to shame. That, oh my gosh, I didn't, which I'm very proud of. I didn't at all. I just realized that exactly what you said today when you're a little kid. I really did believe, and that is ingrained, that is in me, that I was the problem. The wounded part of me believes that's where my lack of worth comes from. Really believed that I was the problem, and had I been better, more, or different, then this wouldn't have happened.
Well, and you probably had a wide range of inputs in your life that fed and fueled and helped concretize that conclusion within you.
Well, if that makes sense, because as a child, when that was all being imprinted, then I had the energy of that and went out into the world and pulled in all the resonators that validated it.
And it sounds like from what little you've um, described, as though your relationship with your mother was less than ideal.
Yes, and father. I didn't, yeah. Hmm.
So, um, there's the concept of the untouchable mother,
Hmm.
also with Dr. Ingrid Clayton, and she did an interview with our whole childhood. I forget the gentleman who runs that interview, but it's the untouchable mother, believing me, with Dr. Clayton.
Mm.
You could tap into that in a podcast. The podcast is called Our Whole Childhood with Patrick Teeman, Tea or Tehan, Teahan.
Okay, Tihan. Okay, what was the name of that? Just so I have it.
Well, the
Well,
our whole
okay,
WHOLE childhood,
okay, thank
and
you.
that's the podcast name. The specific episode would be with Ingrid Clayton, and it's whatever I just said, the
Believe in me.
untouchable
I
mother.
believe you said believe in me. Is
Well,
that
it's
right?
the
Oh,
untouchable mother is one of
oh, Okay. Yeah, so it's and physiologically, there's lots of movement being cleared out of this structure as a result of the worksheets around fawning. So yeah, and my mind doesn't need to understand, just showing up and doing the work
Right.
and
And
grateful.
when you tap into the physiology, now you're in the area where the trauma reduction and the effects of the trauma can get really released. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I appreciated about Dr. Clayton is that she's a somatic informed, therapist, and she understands from her own work how um, unproductive it was to keep thinking about it and do talk therapy where she just kept thinking. And so, the whole concept of the kind of thing that we did on Friday when you got so triggered and we stopped to do some breathing and we stopped to do some tapping and we just help the whole system calm down. And then from that less agitated state, there's still a lot going on in the system, but I can be clear about what it is. I can register it and monitor it better with my conscious logical mind. And then I can start asking those energies that are moving through my system about the messages that they have for me. And eh, you know, one of the many big things that are problems with our system is that we have a system that wants to separate mind from body.
Hmm.
And there is no such thing,
Hmm.
right? So, you know, if you read Louise Hay books and you listen to certain Dr. Michael Ryce lectures, you'll hear him talk about, be careful what you say. This person's such a pain in my neck, and because then you're going to have a pain in your neck. Right? And this person's killing me, and then all of a sudden you've got debilitating pain in your name a
Hmm.
body part, right? And he's talked over the years about different things when it comes up in his, whether it's a workshop he's doing or a presentation he's making or on the internet show, you'll hear him talk about these things. Well, you can buy books from people like Louise Hay, there are many others out there as well, where they try to map out the
Yeah.
symbolism of this symptom related to this life pattern related to this body part. And it seems so novel when people get introduced to that at first. And yet it's all through my work with people. It's absolutely, it's all the Dr. John Sarno stuff. You've heard us talk about Dr. Sarno? Yes? No?
Yes, about the back pain. Yes.
Well, about pain,
Yeah,
right?
pain.
I mean, like his primary focus was as a surgeon working on backs, but what he discovered and what he's termed tension myoneural syndrome, Michael Ryce likes to say, mitosis, but it's mental emotional energy that gets lodged in the system in a place that corresponds to a physiological hunk of energy. We call it the physical, but it's all just energy. And when it gets activated, it starts to tighten things down and spasm. And if it cuts off blood flow, even 5 to 10% for a short period of time, it creates excruciating pain. Well, it's not just pain, it's also functioning. What if there's a, a ball of energy? I mean, I just flashed on one of the stories that Michael would tell about somebody who had been to Heartland and they were on the verge of calling the ambulance because this person had such horrible stomach pain. And he said, okay, we'll call the ambulance, but you might also want to breathe and ask yourself when have you had pain like this before. And the person, of course, in the pain was just no, 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 no. And then all of a sudden, here comes the memory that they were a young child. They had an older sibling. The older sibling that they loved cooked the meal, some story like this.
Hmm.
And the younger sibling, trying to please, ate the meal and got food poisoning and got deathly sick, but didn't want to tell anybody. So here's this stomach cramp. It's the memory
Hmm.
of the past trauma that was getting activated, and then with the breath work and the other work they did in the intensive, it got released, and the person didn't have to go to the hospital. Right? As soon as this memory comes up of this younger time in their life where they were willing to die to not displease their sibling, was all that energy was just wrapped around in their energy system that we call a body, in the area that we call the intestines, etc. So time and time again, and I always want to remember to put this out there. I don't always, but I like to remember to put this out there that, and so Dr. Sarno was a medical doctor. And so even after he discovered his tension myoneural syndrome and his psychoeducational approach, which took his success rate through the roof compared to where it had been, he would still, when people came to him, do a full set of scans. He wanted to rule out cancer or an actual broken bone or a misalignment of things that was physically pinching a nerve, etc., and to rule that out. But once that was ruled out, once what he saw on the scans of the back was just what he had come to term gray hair of the spine. I mean, when you get people past a certain age, everybody's got stuff that looks like curvature of the spine or a little arthritis or a pinched nerve or a bulging, herniated or ruptured disc, or, and on and on and on. And yet his research indicated that only 35% of the people that have all of that on their scans have any pain or restriction of motion. So the pain and restriction of motion can't be related to that stuff they're seeing on the scans, because 65% of the people that have that have no pain and no restriction of motion. To dig further in this for yourself, Dr. John Sarno, Sarno, if you're listening to this and you want, he has books you can write, or he has there was a young documentary film team that created a documentary on him called All the Rage. And if you go to All the Rage, DOC for documentary.com, it'll let you, either buy or rent access to that documentary. But he also has books you can purchase and you can read, at least 5 different books, I believe I've seen over the years from him. The point is, the mind and the body are not separate. And if I've got a physical pain, yes, especially if it's really intense, go to our Western medical people, get a scan, make sure there's nothing immediately, urgently wrong. Be prepared, if you do that, to, if you're of like mind with the people that come to this kind of work, be prepared to say no to them as they offer you muscle relaxers and painkillers that are addictive and restrictive braces that have you not moving. Be prepared to have to say no a number of times as you get the scans and they see what's on there. But then if it's not something that's, oh boy, we got to get you in a surgery right now, then go get some other opinions and start tapping into some of this work that recognizes, even if the pain is not caused by your mental emotional constructs and tension, it is either quite likely aggravated by it, and or the healing that your body could do is being stymied because your stress level is up and your immune system is suppressed. Or a third option, there is a specific set of unconscious, emotionally based reasons that your body is producing this symptom, and getting rid of the symptom is not useful. Understanding the reasons is very useful and will eventually result in the elimination of the discomfort. It seems like I talked a long time. Did it make all sense?
Yeah, all of it actually
Okay.
made sense. And that what I realize now in my story, the separation of feeling through thought. That's a defense.
The
That's been a defense.
separation
A
of feeling
feeling by
through thought.
thinking. Yes. I dissociated from my experience by thinking. So that to keep me in separation of what's really going on in me, that was a survival strategy. So now I'm just moving into feeling and going in exactly all the things you just said in your discourse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is what you just described is a primary, it's not for everybody, but it is a primary coping mechanism that many young people develop through the cycles of trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's called dissociation. Now, when you say this word, it's some people say they're both the same, and some people like to make a distinction between dissociation and disassociation.
Mm.
Do you have any ideas
I
about?
just got, you know what? That just came into my awareness. I've been
Okay,
using the word disassociation and I went
right,
and looked it up in the definitions. It's not even the label within the medical structure is dissociation,
right.
right?
And so dissociation, the way it registers for me, and I'm not saying this is the absolute truth or what everybody else would agree on, but the way I think of it to separate is dissociation is this automatic process that comes up before my conscious logical mind has
Mm-hmm,
any option to intervene and
mm-hmm,
splits me off,
mm-hmm.
numbs me out, puts me in
Yeah.
a trance, gives me an absence seizure, whatever you want to call it. To associate with something is a mental, I associate with that. I am a Catholic. I am a Hoosier.
Mm.
So that's my mentally, emotionally choosing a connection to something. That's to associate with something, and to disassociate from something in that sense means I'm no longer a Catholic. I'm no longer a Hoosier, etc.
Thank
This,
you for
this,
that.
this other process, dissociation, is this faster than lightning. What happened? Where did I go?
Yeah,
So
I got that. Yeah.
one of the stories that Ingrid Clayton told in the interview I was listening and recommending to people with Laura Gowan is she tells a story of and actually I'm not sure if it's not there, it's in another one, but she's talking about how one of the truest things her mother ever said to her at one point in time. She was talking to her mother about something really important, and they were standing right there, and her mother was just staring off blankly into space. And somehow Ingrid registered her mother was not paying attention at all. And eventually, in that interaction, her mother came back to her senses and said something to the effect of, Ingrid, my life is so painful, sometimes I just can't stand it. And I just have to check out. That's the dissociation. That's the situation where people they can go through something, act out the pre-programmed, here's what I do when I'm in this kind of situation that I've always done so I survive, and not be aware that they're doing it until after the fact, and then they go, oh my gosh, why did I do that, and feel with shame. And
Mhm,
there was a period of dissociation where they couldn't have changed it if they wanted to. They might have been sitting
mhm,
back and watching it. There's also a more severe uh, process that can happen. It's just like turning the volume up on that same process where people can lose. They can live their life. They can be driving a car. They can be in a store. They can be in an interaction with people. And 4 or 5 hours later, come to their senses and say, what happened? Where have I been? I mean, I know I was here sort of because the kids got home from school or what the dinner got made or whatever, but
mhm.
I have no memory of it. That's that instantaneous dissociation, that blockage of like hands on the wheel awareness of where you
Mhm.
are and what's happening.
And you know what's interesting because I'm facilitating the work of Dr. Rice's, and every time I saw the word dissociation, I thought it was saying disassociation. And then it came clear And then, of course, I looked it up, and then the 3 aspects of dissociation. That was my mother. What you just described there, completely dissociation, not present. So very interesting. And then also I can do that very easy. That is another survival aspect that I just leave. I left when trauma happened. I left. My awareness left. The body experienced the trauma, but my awareness left.
Well, and if you're working with tools like this and you're working
Mhm.
in this new realm where you're acknowledging there is no separation from the mind and body, if you are
Mhm.
attuning your awareness and strengthening it and practicing it, you will probably discover many places where you
Mhm.
dissociate for a moment, partially, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And as always with this work, I just encourage people to come right back to the Sylvia Boorstein thing. Timmy, sweetheart, you're in pain.
Yeah.
You know, you just lost a half an hour here, or you just, you sat here watching yourself berate that poor person, but that's only because you were in pain. You didn't know how to deal with another way. So just breathe and soften. Then we'll look at what's going on. Then we'll talk about it and decide what to do. But for now, don't be thinking and beating yourself up, and don't be acting and don't be speaking from your pain, because it's not going to go anywhere near as well as you would hope.
I have a
Thank
quick
you.
question. Sometimes when I'm driving, I will get to where I'm going and I don't remember I don't remember each step of the trip, but I don't associate that with dissociation. There's got to be a difference. I don't think it's
Yes,
a trauma response.
right, right. That's just distraction
Yeah,
and our very adaptive autopilot ability to function,
right.
right?
Okay.
Those common tasks that we've been trained to do, we can do, like tying our shoes or,
Right.
you know, getting our stuff and grabbing the keys and getting out the door. We do much of that without mindfulness.
Right.
It is not, the preferred thing, but as long as I've talked about this endlessly over the decades with people, that if I'm driving on the road and I'm just hands on the wheel looking, my eyes are staring out the windshield. And I'm saying that specifically so we're not texting anybody, we're not looking at a phone, we're not playing with the
Hmm.
radio, we're not digging for our change for the toll and not looking. But right here, hands on the wheel, actually head looking outside, I can easily all of a sudden realize I've been thinking about other stuff and work or
Hmm.
relationship stuff, and I missed my exit, right? But in those moments, I'm probably one of the most effective, efficient drivers on the scene, because there's no thought interfering with what should I do. If somebody
Right.
tries to cut in front of me, the auto response will overcorrect, or not overcorrect,
Hmm.
but correct, etc. That's just distraction. That's not dissociation. We
Okay.
we weave in and out of altered states of consciousness all day long. We just don't call it that. Hyperfocus is an altered state of conscious by some definitions. That level of, autopilot when we're driving or when we're doing the dishes or whatever is just, it's not dissociation. It's distraction and being on autopilot. I hope that helps. Again, all of these things are just words. They aren't, the absolute truth of this, that, or the other thing. We're trying to help people have words to describe the work they're doing.
One thing that Cami mentioned, and she's on this call, I see too. I think she was the one that during Michael Rice's show last week sometime, she said, well, how do you say something nice to somebody? How do you know you're not fawning? I love that question. I've asked myself the same thing, but I've felt my way into the answer of that, which is I can feel whether I need something or have a goal with that other person. And if I know I'm centered and well, I could say things that might seem like fawning, but they're not. And I think the other person can tell too. They feel the need or the manipulation in the fawning, which is not there with just an outright appreciative, that was great, So.
Yeah, and the way I talked about this past couple times it's come up in the groups and on the show is there's an energy
Mm-hmm.
in me when I say and do whatever I'm doing,
Mm.
right? So anytime I've got unresolved anger at somebody and I think I'm just going to hold it all in and go interact with them and they'll never know, they may not consciously know. And yet
Right.
I have learned over the years that that energy will flavor, it will
Mm-hmm.
color and
Yep.
influence that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I may not be consciously aware of it. The person receiving may not consciously be aware of it. It will be there mucking up the system.
Right. All right. Okay. Good. Great topic, though.
And, it's not likely that there are very many people on the planet that don't deal with this at some level, right? But we're not saying everybody has to take a look at fawning. We're just saying, look, for those of us that have noticed, I really don't like these patterns I'm in with people. Or, like if here's a way, because we talk about fawning as being an adaptive process. So if I'm a 5-year-old kid and I've got an alcoholic father who's coming home and I never know if it's going to be he's coming home for a rage or he's coming home to pass out or he's coming home to have this, oh, I love you kid so much. I'm so glad I have had you and slobber all over us. If I don't know, but I do know that it's been all of those things over the years, right? In my short lifetime, I might very well develop a no holds barred, whatever dad does is fine. I will kiss up to him to save my rear end or my head from getting beaten or whatever. If that's happened, then it probably, even if it stopped, let's say dad got sober when I was 7, but for the first 5 years or 7 years of life, he was that kind of erratic. I'm probably loaded with an issue around fawning that it will have a powerful influence in my life, whether I'm aware of it or not, and whether I ever label it a problem. Right? Because some people, uh, let's take the phrase master manipulator. Anybody heard that phrase before? Anybody had a person like that in their lives? Anybody ever been in that role before? Right?
Yeah, I've
I
been
mean,
called that many times. Say, oh, you're just by my previous husband. You're just a master manipulator.
aha, aha. Well, you should get it like get a badge and get a car wrap that says, wherever you go, people know that. I mean, be proud of that. I mean, so chances are that it's just that aspect of coping and survival that you developed quite wisely, quite beautifully and creatively as a child that's now not the best tool in your
Hmm.
toolkit, but if it gets resonated in activity, it's going to be having its impact whether you're conscious of it or not.
Yeah. Can you also talk about how over responsibility plays into that? Because I feel over responsible for everyone in my reality.
Well, the one word I would give you to start exploring in that is control.
Mm. Energetically, that's resonating really strong, but into the
Just
intellect,
just breathe into it. If it is, just breathe into it. Notice the energies before you start getting your head all involved. Control, control. Hey, I'd like to set up a situation in which you have absolutely no control. Ready? You want to come along? Come on, everybody on the bus. We're going to get on this bus and it'll just go careening down the mountain with nobody driving. Anybody want to do that? You know,
Heaven no.
and the only people who would want to are those thrill seeker type people, but the average person doesn't even want that. But the person who's had an unstable, unsafe, mercurially disruptive childhood, and it doesn't even have to be severely abusive. If it's just been any of those things I mentioned, that person, in whether they understand it or not, probably spends the vast majority of the energy, mental and emotional energy in their life, wanting control, creating control, beating themselves up for not having control, etc. It's a safety issue. We just want to be safe. Didn't we have some energy around that in one of your worksheets, Susan F?
Yeah.
What's happening with you right now, Susan F, physiologically?
Oh, lots of okay, what's happening? Just I can feel there's actually movement in the body. My right knee is aching. My heart feels constricted. And I feel my awareness wanting to check out.
Okay, so I would encourage you to stay checked in
Okay.
and open a dialogue with any of those energy fields, a knee, a back, a head, a gut, a throat, a lower left molar. I mean, it doesn't matter where it shows up.
Yeah.
Breathe and soften and at least open the dialogue with, or at least if you can't open the dialogue with that part or that energy, acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At least acknowledge consciously at the conscious logical level, oh, this is coming up in very close proximity to this conversation. Let me just see if there might be. Let me question with that childlike curiosity, what might be the connection here?
Yeah, I just heard in my head, control equals perceived safety feature. So that would be good exploration for me.
I just flashed on, there was a movie scene where two of the, I don't know if it was Anthony Hopkins and another very, very popular, very good, but younger actor. And the younger actor was the police officer. And in the scene, Anthony Hopkins was in some kind of a lockup. And this police officer was interrogating him or interviewing him, whatever. At one point in time, Anthony Hopkins makes a quick move and grabs a pencil and gets the guy from behind and is holding the pencil to his jugular. And he's saying to him over and over again, what have I taken from you? What have I taken from you? What have I taken from you? Until eventually the policeman says, you've taken control. And then Anthony Hopkins' character says, no, I've taken the illusion of control.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the control that we believe we have. We fantasize that we've got all of these abilities to control this and that. This person, the master manipulator, thinks he or she can actually control other people. But the actual truth of it is no one's being controlled by a manipulator. People are either playing along with a manipulator or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Think about this. Think about how we talk about it. Oh, he manipulated me. No, he offered manipulation and I played along. Right? One of the bottom line observations is I can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that clashes with the power struggle model, because the fourth observation in the power struggle model is when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, the fourth observation is it must not be something that's designed to get them to do what I want them to do. It must be something that's designed to make my life more safe and sane and livable, regardless of what they choose to do. But wait a minute, aren't I using these tools to win and to get them to do what I want to do? No, observation number 3 says I can't make people do things they don't want to do. I can offer a manipulation. In our culture, we say, I can manipulate people. That doesn't happen in actuality. We all play these games. And so if somebody wants my approval and I offer a manipulation, they're much more likely to take it, play the game to do what I tell them I want them to do. But did I actually make them do anything? No.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
think
Very nice.
about what's going on in your body as you listen to these comments. What's it loading you up with, or relieving pressure from you, or
Well, I'm
starting
seeing
new symptoms?
new symptoms more. I'm recognizing more tension in my body and a bit of relief. For some reason, my previous husband's, like the Rolodex of stories with him, are being generated. And yeah, I feel an element of relief. I can really feel physiology in my right hip going down to where that knee pain is. And it's I can say it feels like a release. That's all I have right now. Just there's a release occurring. I don't even fully understand it, but
Well, if you keep your breath moving and you make notes about this,
yeah.
then you've got the options to actually, one of the things that came up on a regular basis when I would do the all-day EFT tapping workshop from 9 to 4, I would teach a class, and on a regular basis, we'd have people in there who had some significant physical upset, pain, ache, restriction of motion, whatever. And we'd start doing some tapping. The one that's flooding to my memory right now is the woman was in her 80s, and we had about 15 people in the room, and it was in the beginning where I had them standing and teaching them the tapping, and we did a couple rounds, and she went from a plain interested awake face to tears and shaking. And so I stopped her and I said, so what's going on for you? And she said, well, I was tapping on my neck pain and it got worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so since we had done 2 rounds of tapping where she was focusing on the physical symptom of pain in her neck, my usual course of action is, and that's what I did in this time, is to say, okay, take a breath and scan your body and notice what emotion are you aware of as you realize we've done 2 rounds of tapping and the pain's getting worse instead of better. And she said, terror. I said, okay. And what are you afraid of? And she said, I'm just afraid I won't be able to do my art anymore. She's a painter. So we did a round of tapping on her fear that if the neck pain doesn't get any better, she'll never be able to paint again. And her neck pain went from, like, on a scale of 0 to 10, from a 25 down to a 6. So acknowledging this eternal, infinite connection between my thoughts, emotions, and what I call the body is a real important piece for this work. Otherwise, we're going to end up in one dead end after another, trying to pretend that my mind is separate from my body, is separate from my thoughts, is separate from my emotions. So
onwards and upwards.
and make some notes about where you're feeling this and what do you get. Is there an emotion so you could be doing worksheets or tapping on your knee and it could stay the same or get a little bit better or get worse. If it gets worse, one of the clues for you is then, all right, sit with the worst as it's getting worse, and ask yourself, okay, so what if this never gets better? And watch what emotion comes up, and then do the worksheets or tapping around that particular energy experience that we call an emotion.
So when I'm tapping, obviously doing the process of tapping, it's not tapping on the knee directly. It's doing the
That's
process
right.
of tapping for the
Right.
knee. Okay.
Right. It's doing all of the tapping for whatever acupressure points resonate with you from the EFT tapping. And you can
Got it.
find out about those
Yeah.
on, I mean, if you just Google EFT
Yeah.
tapping points, you'll have all kinds of PDFs that come up, et
Yeah.
cetera, and or videos that you can watch.
Yeah, I trained in it years ago, with a fellow in Canada, and now, of course, then more points have come, so I'm familiar. And it's interesting. This is one other piece with these tensions in my body. I realize now I didn't get it. I thought I was separate from them, and I just wanted them to go away. And I realize it's just denied and dissociated parts of myself that I'm bringing into my conscious awareness. And
Yeah, the
yeah.
stuff that happens that becomes into your awareness that is
Mhm.
in what you call your physical body is just information for you.
Exactly. That's, and I resisted it and I was mad at it, and neck pain. It's funny you're talking neck pain because, yeah, I mean, and yeah, the knee and the hip. And I realize now it's just be patient, continue to do the work. So thank you so much for all you shared today.
You're kindly welcome and deserving, and good luck applying it.
I will continue to apply and continue to heal. That's why I'm here.
I think if I look at my caseload right now and I just kind of tally up the number of people who have big issues with fawning, with trying to resolve impacts of abuse, it's about somewhere between 60 and 80% of my caseload.
Yeah.
Just so anybody who might be listening understands, you're not alone.
Thank you for saying that.
And that's one of the better benefits of listening to interviews from people like Dr. Ingrid Clayton, who had, the untouchable mother and all kinds of abuse and trauma in her
Yeah.
childhood, and then because of her intelligence and her perseverance, has been on the hunt, on the search for solutions. And one of the biggest benefits to reading memoirs like that or books like that is, oh, wait a minute. It's not just weak, stupid, crazy people like me that have this. Maybe these labels I have for myself, maybe all the times I heard somebody tell me there's something wrong with me when I was a child, maybe that was coming from someone who was in pain, fear, or sadness they couldn't control, and it didn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I wish you had more time to process through your tears and energy, but just keep the breath moving, and congratulations on your willingness to explore and use the tools. And I will remind us all that we come from love,